Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, Ingenious Thinkers, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. My name is Ken Tencer, curator of Say Hi to the Future, helping leaders think differently in the face of uncertainty and ambiguity. Better thinking, better outcomes. Today I'm joined by Jeevak Badve, Chief Growth Officer at Sundberg-Ferar, and a global design leader known for turning complex ideas into human-centered innovation. Many would agree that Jeevak combines a rare trifecta of design, engineering, and business acumen. Jeevak, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Wow, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here, Ken.
So it really is pretty cool. I mean, I was looking at your education. You went from mechanical engineering to design to an MBA. Like what brought you through that path to start?
That's pretty interesting. Means my mom and dad wanted me to become a doctor, and I did not. But I was always a tinkerer. I always wanted to open things and close things when I was young. So she thought I would be a great engineer. So she sent me off to the nearest engineering college. And I did just that. I did mechanical engineering, enjoyed it a lot. And then through them, went to Tata Motors back in India. And Ken, there, I was exposed to the world of design, the actual design.
Nice.
Structure design, the actual design studio. So as it happened, 2 years later, I went back crying back to my home and said, I want to be a designer, an industrial designer, a product designer. And that's why I applied again and did my master's in industrial design. And then eventually I started to put together the mechanical thinking and the designing elements together. But design is human-centered. It's for empathy, right? It's not for self. It's not, even though we all are born from artists, we are not creating an self-expression. It has to meet the needs, the wants, the desires, the dreams of the end user. So understanding the context, and that makes sure that you have to know the business world a little bit. So, made sure I put myself through the executive MBA to understand how eventually, whatever designs are happening, they're also trying to put the business in black, how to make sure you try to balance all three things together. So, interesting journey so far.
Well, it's a long way from being a doctor, but I think it worked out pretty well. So hopefully your mom was okay with that in the end.
Well, still my brother and sister bully me over dinner table because they are and I'm not. So I'm still losing my battle.
There you go. So, let's talk about Tata Motors for a second. I mean, you talk about learning engineering, or you did that after your mechanical engineering, but they have an incredible, from what I understand, relationship with the marketplace. I mean, the type of cars and automobiles, size, price point, they really have an innate ability, and I'm sure it's an earned and worked ability, but to understand how all these things come together that you've worked through.
How does everything come together, you said?
Yeah, I mean, like with Tata, I think they really understand the right size of car for the market, the options, the price point. I mean, that's a lot more than just the engineering side of automotive.
I think you are sensing something pretty amazing thing that I sensed when I was there in the R&D department. They are not just for focus group, not just for a design scent element. They're always in touch with the voice of the consumers. Always. There was not a single day, not a single hour where we are not talking about the actual real world user. It might be designing for farmers or designing for luxurious segments. It was always the voice of consumers. And this was 25 years ago, right?
Right.
It was, either way, it was built as a part of the culture. When we knew nothing else than being the voice of the consumers, even though as though we are designers. And I think that has stayed with them since until now. And it comes directly down from the ethics of Tata and the family of Tatas. Really amazing work ethics and taking care of the employees as a family. I mean, now I think I read in Harvard Business Reviews here and there of how family culture, everything goes. But over there, it was complete a family, a big family, and 200, 300,000 people family, but nonetheless an amazing family wherever you are.
And I think I mean, look, you nailed something that's critical today. And I think more companies understand today the voice of the customer. But, in my own work around, ingenuity or innovation, I've walked into companies where the engineers really still do not have that discussion or that direct access with the end user. It's coming in through marketing or sales. And I find that to be like a broken telephone.
No, it's, I think that now we want to make sure we do enough collaboration, right? But how does collaboration happen, Ken? Collaboration first happens with making collegiality. So how you build that? How do you make sure people are at least meeting together first in social circles, then for maybe your normal kind of training sessions from HR. But there are ways to make sure you break the ice within your own team and get them together. And no matter what, in a way, I think coming back, today also, that time or today, it's never a pyramid where only single, I would say, stage all the way on the top, they take a decision and then it trickles down. It's basically always a two-way nowadays where at the first moment, means before we even start design, before that we try to make sure we do the architectural framing of the entire model. When we do those strategic documents design, at that time also we have to make sure we engage the engineering point of view, the sales point of view, the operations point of view. And it sounds like, no, that's too early. No, if you don't think it is too early, you're probably too late to bring them in the discussion. And you will surprise that what we bring to the table, we always think as designers, I would say that we bring a lot to the table. If you go to the other camp, they also believe the same thing and they're genuinely working. When I say they, engineering and marketing, they're also genuinely working to see how the product has a market success, right? So when you get them together, you do brainstorming together, everybody will have a strong opinion. We love that. The best thing is not to hunt them down or shoot it down, but making sure everybody's opinion is there on the wall. We just write, make sure we park all those ideas, and then as we go and try to synthesize towards what is going to make the product successful in the market, then you refer back and see, okay, we have this combination of ideas together which can go and channel through this kind of a pathway. So the earlier you get people talking, the better it is. Since then till right now, especially more right now.
And how do you keep them, I don't know if it's involved, but informed, I'd say. I mean, I had all these memories. I had another situation where I walked into an organization and they said, Ken, a lot of the people in the room aren't going to be happy to see you. And I go, that's a great way to start. I've never met these people. I've never worked with them before. And I said, why? And they said, well, we had this, this great program and we got about 800 ideas coming in. And we never really thanked anybody for them or acted on them or continued the conversation. It was like a year and a half ago. I'm like, okay, so they're really, really not going to like me if you position me as having anything to do with it. But the point, Jeevak, is it's great to ask and to synthesize and to say this is right or this is not right. But how do you tell or involve the people who've had the ideas saying, great idea, but maybe not for now, or maybe, wasn't quite right. I mean, it's not just taking the idea, it's engaging the idea, I guess.
Correct. And as we know, there'll always be 800 ideas on the wall, and genuinely not each of them can be used. Means maybe for the most idealistic realization you might, but it's never ideal. You have to always start making compromises as you inch yourself towards the final goal. I think the main element there is people will not be, let's say, mad if their ideas are not used. Only if you let them know what is the next stage, keeping them in the loop. Let's say you're doing a brainstorming session with 12 people, only let's say 2 ideas mature to the conceptual stage. You're still making sure everybody understands why was the reason, the metrics in choosing some of them and going forward. So when you're doing these things, the people are still there on the projects. They just get reassigned to a different idea, or we get and make sure we are putting some idea together as an idea bundle. So even though their first work has been done, it goes to the next stage. They're still working on to solve the problem, albeit through a different point of view, a different kind of an, I would say, understanding of how to solve that. So as long as they know where they are in the entire process or why these ideas were not selected, it all works out good. And the main genesis comes back to will be sounding very basic to the way the people you hire. So at the hiring process, you are trying to understand about the ego and how you plant your ego at the outside the door, especially when you need it. Sometimes you need good ego for your marketing team to go out there and say, we are the strongest brand in the world because of this, and this reason. But if you're a designer, if you're contributing to idea, accumulation, then those elements in a way are wired in with that person, maybe a designer, engineer, a marketeer, or a business person. So as long as you have a good collection of people, you cannot just create a good culture. You need to make sure you have a basic good starting point. And that's where the leadership comes in, is saying like, these are the values and the manifesto of how we are going to operate. Are we all succumbing to it? Good, let's go forward.
When you talk about hiring right people, and you talk about leadership, I mean, leadership hasn't necessarily always had an open ear or an openness, for the rest of the team, for their ideas, for their thoughts. How do you overcome that as a barrier? Is that something that when you engage companies, they're already there, the leaders are there, or you really have to engage them and explain their role in the process?
So in a way, we take it in a complete different way. When we say leader, when we design, we are a design studio, we design products and artifacts and services and systems and solutions. For us, the design attributes of that product or that service, they are the leader. It is as simple as that. The other person, let's say, the title of the leader can just be a program manager and contribute. Right. As long as you're doing it to make sure that product has to go to the next stage, then we are all good. And that's where then the element of non-openness or closeness doesn't matter, because we are not doing it for promoting a person, but we are doing it to make sure our product goes to the right product and market fit. So in a way, nobody can just come in the room and say, hey, I'm the chairman right now. I want to make sure I make this executive decision. We are a design studio. We work for clients, and sometimes clients are very strong opinionated, right? They have leaders too. But we love the client. We love clients, and we have an open discussion with them also. We love clients who want to really listen, right? And listen for the right understanding, for the right kind of a concept. We are here in the market for last 91 years. We are one of the original design studios in the US, and that constitutes lots of accumulation of really good expertise and experience. So predominantly people are there for that, like they want to have our point of view. But apart from that, once or twice, we have to let them know, guys, we can do whatever you want, no matter what. You're signing our checks. But if it was up to us, we will go and tell you to go and do this one. And all these reasons will make sure it's not just you are right. We want your product to be right. So eventually it's going to make you a 10 times your profit or 50 times your profit. And then people are mature. They understand, like, yeah, let me just keep my bias outside. Everybody, every human, good, bad, or otherwise, will have a bias. That's how we are generated. That's how we evolved all the way to where we are. So just make sure that we, I would say, as experienced, we know how to understand or control the biases and understand how the market might evolve over there, and just have a good, mature talk about that.
And you just mentioned 91 years. So tell us a little bit more about Sundberg-Ferar. I mean, that's 91 years, is a lot of decades. Design has changed so dramatically. I've been part of it for almost 40 years, but that leaves 51 on the other side of your. So yeah, tell us about it.
I find myself really grateful to be with a studio like this, 91 years and still running strong. So, in Bauhaus in 1919 in Germany, that's where the industrial design started in Europe. But here in the US, it all started in 1930s. Right here in Cranbrook, means not that far away from where our studio is. Charles and Ray Eames and Inro Saarinen, Peter Mueller-Monk, Henry Dreyfuss, and then eventually Sundberg-Ferar. They both started as designers, or I would say at that time the word was stylist, with Harley Earl in GM Design Studio in downtown Detroit. And as the story goes, because of the ups and downs of the vehicle world, since then till now, ups and downs, they both were fired on the same day. And the same day in the parking lot, both of them shook hands and said, let's start a design studio with one element. We'll always make sure we will design for not just the vehicular world, but also for the product world. So since then till right now, we try to maintain a balance between our projects, between vehicle design, product design, and now digital services also.
So tell us a little bit about how that works in the real world, because you're working the balance of user desirability, business viability, technical feasibility, a lot of syllables. But at the end of the day, you need me to buy this from you. Me being someone who gives a darn, there being a lot of me, and we have a lot of money. So how do you turn those all the theory, if you will, or the thinking into just make Ken purchase?
So ideally, we always try to make sure for the literally an ideal user experience in front of us. But market forces come in, the budgets happen, timings come in. Suddenly, the competition launch a complete different product. You have to come back and scramble and change your course. Also, you have to do that sometimes. So the thing is, all those three things have to be there in any stage and any decision process. We do not just decide based on just emotion and aesthetics. It has to be done with the elements of physics and also the market forces too. But at every stage, there has to be a compromise or one or the other, and we have to be open for that. So can think about right now, it's a football season here, right? On the state side. Think about football, right? You know which direction you are going. You have to go and get the field goal. But right now, we are going to look at the next 10 yards. Nothing else. We are pointing in the right direction. We know where our vision and goal is. But right now, we are not thinking about anything else 10 yards at a time. And that 10 yards, maybe in the first 10 yards, you're talking more about the product, less about engineering, more about market. Then the next 10 years, you talk more about engineering, a little bit less about design changes, more about market. So that kind of an matrix, the spider keeps on changing a little bit, changing the shape. But at the end, when we reach the 100 yards, if you play your cards and strategy right, then there is a good balance between whatever you have done through all those marching steps of 100 yards. So is all making sure how you make the best of your resources, best of your time, depending on what it goes into the market. And it works out eventually when we try to make sure we give in or for some things versus load something else on the other perspective.
So first, Jeevak, and then I'll get back to that. First, I have to correct you on something. I know it's football season, it's NFL, but it's baseball season. Toronto Blue Jays are in the World Series against LA.
Yep.
I just wanted to say it's still baseball season. Not in Detroit. I know. You're a few hours away. So you talk about the discussion and compromises, and there's a lot of forces going on within a room that help shape what comes out of that room. For me, one of the biggest challenges, people, we talk about money and people and other forms of capital being the biggest barriers. For me, it's bias. And how do you work? I mean, especially in a design world where thinking, approaches, processes, they carry a lot of bias within them. How do you work that through? And, whether it's internally or client or a little bit of both, if you will.
Experimenting and role playing. So that's where the iteration part of design comes in really strong. So first of all, experimenting a lot. If let's say Ken comes with an idea and he's biased with that, that's perfectly okay. Let's for a few days or a few hours or a few weeks role play and experiment exactly what that idea is. We have a focus room in our studio. We have a design place, and we have a big kind of an prototyping place also. So we have decent space to do role playing of an entire. Let's say what happens in a hotel lobby or in a workshop floor or in a shop floor, and sometimes it can be just low fidelity modeling. Right, you can just draw the tape on the floor, have some cardboard boxes, park things here and there, assign roles to everybody, and do the role play. Let's say you have your bias, let's play with that one. Everybody now succumbs to that. Then tomorrow or day after, we role play another one, another one, another one. And through that, it literally comes when you actually go through that process, when you are experiencing the elements of the pain points, all the pleasure points of your product or your utensil or your equipment or your device, then you yourself are saying like, you know what? We are right. We need to change something here, or this is not going to work because it's almost impossible. We do a lot of elements of circle of friends kind of things, and doing primary research is pretty expensive, and you can actually make it more significantly statistically significant also. But sometimes you can just do role playing with your family members, with your teammates. Like, okay, you are most near to right now what the persona we have in mind. Wear this hat. You are right now the CEO of this company. Let me go with that kind of a role playing. And through this kind of an active gamification, I think everything comes out very clear where it wants to go. And the person who might have a strong bias says of like, yeah, now I understand why this is the way. Or sometimes the other people understand like, dang, the boss was right. Literally was that particular way. Let's go that particular element. And again, for every big milestone meeting, the client and the client's team also works together. It's never designed in a black box because we actually never accept a project which will just be like, here is money, here is time, and come back and give us something in the hand. It is usually collaborative, not just with our team, but with the client's team, where people from the client's team actually become a part of our studio for those few months. Is the other way around. We become their employees or they becoming our employees. They get to come and try out completely different way of thinking for those weeks or those months with us.
So I'm speaking today with Jeevak Badve, Chief Growth Officer at Sundberg-Ferar. Jeevak, so when you were describing that, I mean, how teams work together, workshopping, some creative exercises, it seems like that type of engagement will be good for any company to learn and to experience, even if they don't have a specific industrial design need at this point in time. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we predominantly made our name to glory with actual products, the physicality of it. Then they eventually always need to have a digital twin with it. But we right now work with governmental projects. We work with institutional projects. We work with community projects where there is no product. It's all about experience. We want to design a space where people want to come and enjoy the evening time. So that's where, again, we are still talking about the needs and the wants and the desires in that space, that time, and that experience. So as long as you can try to articulate that and use that as a fodder for thought of what needs to be there, is good. So design principles, even though they started with a product in mind or a space in mind, they literally can be applied anywhere and everywhere, for services, for a fitness gym, for your backyard gardening module. The forces are still the same. It just lets you critically think about what's needed to make it a good design. Like, good design is good business. How to make sure the design is good. We are not going to cut any corners. We want to go from this stage to that stage. What is the best possible way to go over there?
So we've been talking about existing companies, where there's structure, there's products that's ongoing, etc. Let's talk about a startup. Let's talk about if you had a complete clean sheet and you wanted to redesign how innovation or design was applied to, from scratch. How would you do that? How would you counsel a new company to optimize what could be?
So that's a great point. We work with big companies, we work with medium companies, and we work with a lot of startups. And in a way, they might not realize that, but they're blessed with designing from scratch up the entire, I would say, the foundation of a brand, which eventually might be a timeless or an iconic brand. So there's huge burden on our shoulders when we work with startups because it's a complete clean sheet of paper. And that's the time when we can really go back to the basics. So apart from design, we also offer services of innovation strategy, right? Understanding the whys and whats and hows and where to do that, where to even choose to play. Sometimes we come with startups who want to make a change for betterness in the society. They do not come with a product idea or a service idea, but then we say, like, hey, I want to make people healthy. Okay, that's pretty good. And then let's try to see right now in the market, not just looking at the growth market, but looking at what areas we want to do, what is really your purpose, right? The purpose has to be clear, and then we can devise a different way to channel through that. So that's where I think the main, it's not dichotomy, but that's where we have to be sure to hold two opposing thoughts in the mind, how to think of a product or how to think about a brand and fuse it together about where it has to go. So we might not be known as a branding company, but we think a lot about that with startups.
Right.
Sure, we are helping them establish the spearhead of their brand identity with this first product. And one of the element is to think about in the future, even though they're starting with a single product, as a startup should, we think about the continuity of the brand for the next 5 years. We don't design all of them, but we understand the skeletal elements of, okay, today we are going to come with this coffee cup. Tomorrow it might be a steel glass tumbler. Third day it might be a tiffin box. The fourth year it might be something else. So, hey, if you're going to go over there, let's have to make sure how we design the first one is going to throw their halo on the next one. So we always have one eye on present, and then the other eye on the future, because now we don't need to have the third eye on the past, because we are going to build the heritage, not work off a legacy or a heritage, which is a different challenge with different, with different clients as such.
So you mentioned talking about two opposing thoughts and holding them in your head. I don't think these are opposing, but look, I'm just finishing up my doctor in human ingenuity. So clever, inventive, fearless, thinking how we think. And I talk a lot about the emotional and the gut intelligence, which separates us from artificial intelligence and separates us from agentic as well. You're talking about still in some ways getting on the floor, putting tape down, touching, feeling, talking. It's a very different process. How do you bring the two together? Because today, and we do this as business people, but everyone's talking about AI. We love shiny balls. I mean, we don't seem to be able to hold two thoughts in our head, and we really need to, whether it's design or business model design. I mean, we really need to hold human and artificial intelligence in our brain.
So the other aspect of when I say holding two opposable thoughts, I think if you're a designer and you're having your pencil to the paper, at that time, when you're drawing a line, it might be anything, you are literally thinking about the details of that product. But at the same time, you're also trying to think about how it's going to go and manifest into the real life, right? So even though you might be designing a small fillet or a small kind of a feature at that time, you're still thinking about the product and more the product experience over there. So that kind of a granular design and zooming back to the visionary of where the experience has to feel, I think even that kind of an pulsation of two thoughts would be or is necessary. And I think that's one of the uniqueness of the species or that of industrial designers. That was the first aspect of, I would say, two thoughts. Right now you're talking about the world of AI and obviously the human ingenuity also. I mean, AI means it's amazing. We right now use at least a dozen AI tools right now in our studio to speed up the process of design. Right? Means there is, the factor of human ingenuity, which is the core part, and that I would say still remain maybe at least for next 10 years. But there are so many aspects to bring efficiency to your processes. It might be design research. It might be synthesizing of ideas. It might be the data that you want in your voice and in your tonality of the market. All those things are perfect positions to the use of AI. Means there are so many tools we have been using. Earlier we used brush and then eventually clay models and now a 3D printing. It is a continuation of what we can use from the harnessing the computing power where we used to just, in a way, lose time, and now we can gain some more velocity, which we can offer it to our clients to bring the products earlier in the market. And speed to market has always been a winner. So we are going to actually see pretty good kind of an play working both of them together as we go forward. Depends on how you choose where to use and where not to use the other.
Well, I like that because you use the word continuation, use the words increasing speed of flow. And I use the same thing. I mean, when I talk about human ingenuity, look, I'm fully embraced in all ingenuity and the importance of AI and whatnot. But as I say to people, in business, if you've ever had a handheld calculator, you've engaged with AI. And they go, oh, yeah, but that's it. No, that's the paintbrush. That's the paintbrush. Now, to your point, we're continuing to evolve and we're doing it at a greater speed of growth. And how to better use that paintbrush or that calculator, that's just something we need to do and to incorporate into who we are as team members. So anyway, it's amazing, Jeevak, how fast time goes already. I've been talking with Jeevak Badve, Chief Growth Officer at Sundberg-Ferar. And just to finish up, let's think about the future for a second. When you think about the future of design, not just the tools or trends, but the purpose, what gives you the most optimism about the purpose of design going forward?
I like that question. Future confidence, future optimism, the purpose of element. I think more and more, and we did not see this 15, 20 years ago, more and more when we are talking with our clients, they are urging us to see how we can reach out to the other partners in the ecosystem to solve the problem together. See, earlier we used to always do 1:1 kind of an projects, right? Here, Mr. ABC comes in, we work for them, something else. Even though they might be in the similar kind of an space, there was no, I would say, active request to join hands together as a partner with somebody else in the design phase. Typically, partnership is a really big thing in the marketing, go-to-market, discounting, network effects, and all those things. But those I am seeing a little bit more coming all the way to the upfront. It's like, hey, that problem is in that particular space. We know we are just one person in that space. There are 17 others. Can you focus on somebody else so we can all do it together? And that's itself is pretty amazing when it comes from design mindsets or business mindsets to reach out in the world of collaboration, not with us teams, but teams within teams, to go and find that future, the future of a kitchen or the future of an OR or the future of camping. And that is simply superpower that I think any studio can bring to make sure we all work together at the first stage.
Jeevak, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining Say Hi to the Future today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Really appreciate my time here.
If you enjoyed this episode and you want to support our show, leave us a review and join our mailing list by visiting www.spyder.works. That's SPYDER.works, and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for listening, and see you all next Friday.